Inside America's Boardrooms, the informational show for board members and corporate secretaries. Brought to you with knowledge partners Nasdaq, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, R.R. Donnelly, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.
Welcome to this edition of Inside America's Boardrooms. I'm TK Kerstetter, CEO of Boardroom Resources, and it's my pleasure to welcome you to the show. We have a very interesting show today, and it's my pleasure to have the team from Nasdaq here, who I'll introduce in a minute. We're going to be talking about the keys to maximizing your board shareholder relations team. My guests are Joan Conley, Senior Vice President and Corporate Secretary for Nasdaq, and is also responsible for the Global Nasdaq Corporate Governance Program and Nasdaq Global Ethics and Compliance Program. Welcome, Joan.
Thank you.
And to her right is Ed Ditmire, who's the VP for Investor Relations at Nasdaq. Welcome, Ed.
Thanks, TK.
Okay, so you guys are known to be a very active team as far as being communicative with your board, with shareholders, and that's exactly why we've invited you here. So can you guys talk a little bit about how you work together to ensure that the board has the feedback from the shareholders and then is aware of all the trends that are occurring with the shareholder engagement? So, Joan, how about if we start with you?
Be happy. It's a great topic, and certainly one that Ed and I spend a lot of time on. It's a very dynamic discipline. Let's just start with, the dynamic nature of being responsible for communicating with the board, with shareholders, with executive management, and ensuring all of those voices come together in the boardroom and ensure that our board is very, very familiar with it. So we're fortunate at Nasdaq that shareholder views are currently in our boardroom. 2 of our directors are shareholders. So we have that insight, which is, almost 20% of our board, which is really nice to have that. Additionally, Ed and I are very much aligned on our shareholder engagement. It's part of our DNA. Not only do we spend a good deal of time, from my perspective, from my seat, talking to the governance teams of not only our large institutional shareholders, but proxy advisory firms, retail shareholders, and governance gurus, but Ed spends a good deal of time talking with portfolio managers. So we take it from our sort of discipline is from inside out, outside in, and all combined together. A portfolio manager is looking at the financial discipline and the financial and corporate strategy of the organization, where a governance proxy voting team is looking at sort of the plumbing. How does the organization work? Ed and I work very closely to bring both of those pictures together for our board. It's very, very important that they have both pictures. Additionally, we've embarked on bringing some of those teams together within the institutions, which is sort of a neat sort of test that we're trying, so that we can have the portfolio managers know more about what's happening with our corporate governance, with Nasdaq's corporate governance, as well as having the governance teams know more about our financial discipline and our corporate strategy. And so far, it seems to be working very well. But let me invite Ed's comment.
Yeah, I think the main job of IR is really to serve as someone that keeps the lines of communications open in 2 directions. So not only helping investors understand the strategies, the intentions, and the objectives of the management team, and but also to give that great feedback from the investment community back to the executive team and the board. And we do that through periodic quarterly reports that not only talk about how the Nasdaq story is progressing with the investment community, where expectations are, where valuation is, but also updates on what's going on with the other companies in our sectors. Not only how they're performing as a business, but more importantly, what are their main messaging objectives? What are their strategies? And what's the street view on how those dynamics are going? And so we try to keep that, very active.
So I would expect that there's some added pressure, only because you are NASDAQ and you're educating every other company how to handle their affairs with respect to governance, with respect to shareholder engagement. So that must bring a pretty bright light to you guys in the sense that, do as I say, do as I say and do, okay? Is that true?
Well, certainly we want to be a model for the penultimate of corporate governance. We are constantly striving to improve what we do in the corporate governance area, and certainly in engagement. What we provide to our directors is very critical in that regard, in terms of engagement. Ed is being very modest. We are at every Nom and Gov committee meeting. We are on the agenda. We provide them with a governance dashboard. They have a full view into our shareholder registry. They have a full view into current trends in corporate governance, legal requirements, regulatory requirements, as well as those issues that are important to our shareholders, retail and beneficial and institution. It's across the board. The dashboard for our board, for our Nom and Gov committee and our board, is very critical in that we identify issues. We try and have an early identification of issues, as well as plans to address some of those issues. And by sort of engaging in that level of detail, we actually have disciples on our board that go out and share that model with some of the other listed companies. And if Nasdaq listed companies come to us, which they frequently do, with a question as to how do you run shareholder engagement, Ed and I are more than happy to share the protocol that we use within the boardroom to educate directors, as well as our engagement with the portfolio managers and the institutional shareholders.
Well, this show is a perfect example of your commitment to educate board members and corporate secretaries and whatever in what other companies are doing or best practices. So we certainly appreciate the support of Nasdaq, and most importantly, the market site that lets us, broadcast the show. So one of the things we wanted to get across today was to give some specific examples of how each of you might work with the board on something specific. So Joan, I'm going to start with you again. Can you give our viewing audience some examples specifically on how you might work with the board to improve the board shareholder relations?
Certainly, I'd be happy to share that. It's so important in our mind that our board members have a complete and thorough view of all of our stockholders. Very, very important. So to that end, we provide on a meeting by meeting basis a complete and comprehensive view of not only our shareholder registry, but as I said, our governance dashboard. But importantly, outside of the board meeting process, we use our board portal, Director's Desk, as a key tool for our directors to receive daily press clips, analyst reports, ISS and Glass Lewis reports, any commentary, any financial reports. All of that is warehoused for our directors in Director's Desk. And our directors look at that on a daily basis. They look to see what is the commentary, what are the analysts saying about Nasdaq, what are they saying about our space, what is the public saying about Nasdaq, what are our key institutions saying about Nasdaq, as well as general trends such as what we're talking about today and others that are discussed on this show in corporate governance. We want to be a leader. We want to be sort of a model for our listed companies. So that board portal has a wealth of information so that our board members can look internally as well as external views on corporate governance matters. Ed uses another valuable tool, IR Insight, that gives him insight into what's happening on a day-to-day basis with our stockholders. It's so important to find out what's important to our stockholders because that's important to us.
So Ed, you're in the trenches, if you will. Okay, you're on front line. Those inquiries are coming in to the IRO. So talk a little bit about, again, how you bridge that with the board on a specific example.
Yeah, one thing that pops to mind immediately is TK, before I was the VP of IR here, I was a sell-side stock analyst that covered Nasdaq and other exchanges for about 10 years. And so I still have a bit of the mind of the sell-side analyst in me. And so along those lines, I really think a lot about their role. In particular, they talk to so many of the investors that when you engage with them, they can amplify and repeat messages in very efficient ways and get your company's point of view into the discussion. Now, one of the most interesting things we did in our meetings with the board was bring several of the leading stock analysts in to tell the board what it's like to cover Nasdaq, what the conversations around our stock are like with investors, both positive and negative, and to let the board get their insights on a wide range of topics. It definitely brought new perspectives to the boardroom, and I can say they found it really interesting.
Very much so.
Well, I wish we had a ton more time. There's a lot of things that I would like to ask you, but I think you both as a team set a perfect example of what the expectations should be for the teams of your issuers or other companies out there that have to tackle the same issues that you do. Again, I recognize the bright light that's put on you because you can't be in the mode of teaching and helping educate issuers without having best practices yourselves. But I can say from my experience that you guys have certainly set a great example and set the bar pretty high, which is what you want to do. So thank you for joining me on the show. We appreciate you taking the time. And that will conclude this issue of Inside America's Boardrooms. We hope you enjoyed the show. We'll be back again next week when we take a look at another critical topic that'll help you be a better board member or committee member. So we'll see you then.
Join us again next week for Inside America's Boardrooms. Brought to you with Knowledge Partners, Nasdaq, the Center for Audit Quality, and PwC. Along with content contributors Equilar, Meridian Compensation Partners, Wilson Sonsini Goodrich and Rosati, R.R. Donnelly, and the Society of Corporate Secretaries and Governance Professionals.